God's going to take us from what we were and change us into what he wants us to be. He can take you from a shepherd to a king. He can take you from what we were to what he created us to be, and that is an incredible message. Thank you for that, Amy. If you have your Bibles, if you'll turn to Joshua chapter 10 with me this morning. Now, I would like to start this message out by talking to the younger generation. So guys, there you go. Now they're all looking up at me. Even the older people are looking intently, like, I am the younger generation. Yeah, so everybody's looking at me like, yeah, that's me. I'm the younger generation. For the younger generation, I want to talk to you just for a second here. You're growing up in a culture that says if you want it, then demand it. And I'm not talking about you personally. I'm talking about the culture that we are in. If you want it, demand it. That you can be anything you want to be and nobody can tell you no. That is the society, that is the culture that we're living in right now. And I want to help you out before I get into the gist of my message this morning. People can tell you no. It can happen. Circumstances can prevent forward motion sometimes. It can happen. And sometimes life can be a struggle and we are not entitled to anything. And I want you to get this. We're in a generation where we say, oh no, I'm entitled, I have my rights. We are not entitled to anything. Sometimes we can be told no. Sometimes circumstances go against us and we don't end up with the results that we want to. If you want something in life, do the work that it takes to earn it. And please hear what I'm saying here. You will be a better person for it. Do the work it takes to earn it. Don't expect it to be handed to you. Don't expect somebody just to say, well, it's your right to have this, so it's yours. No, if you want it, earn it. And I want you to hear that. Please be a leader in this generation. Please be a leader in this generation. This world needs to see godly teenagers. They need you. And they need to understand that there's a generation coming up that says, I'm not entitled to anything, but if I want it, I will earn it. I will do the work that it takes to get this thing. We need you to lead others by example, so we're asking you to do that. Now, at the same time that I'm encouraging the younger generation here, I see the older generation nodding their heads in agreement. But don't get too comfortable. I'm coming after you too. So understand that part's on its way here. Turn with me to Joshua chapter 10. Joshua's finally made it into the promised land with the younger generation that we talked about last Sunday. Last Sunday we talked about the spies that went into Canaan and they discouraged Israel from going in. And God says, okay, the younger generation will go in with Joshua and Caleb, not the older generation. The older generation dies out and the younger generation's ready to go. Now they've finally gotten into the promised land, and that younger generation's with Joshua. He's defeated both Jericho and Ai, and the people of Canaan are starting to take notice. This guy walks in with all these people, and they are starting to take over our land. After the word had gotten around that Israel just walked in and started defeating the armies of the land of Canaan, a group called the Gibeonites devise a plan for their own protection. So this is a key story in the book of Joshua. These Gibeonites come in and they pretend to be people from a faraway land who just came to serve the God of Israel. They tear up their clothes, they get moldy bread, their water bottles and stuff, they make sure they look aged, and then they come in and pretend not to be part of the land, but they pretend to be people that came from a long distance away just to worship the God of Israel with Israel. Joshua and the other leaders decide to make a covenant with these people, and their safety is secured under that covenant. So these Gibeonites come in and they make a treaty with Israel, and this is what stirs up all the ruckus that unfolds in chapter 10. Look at chapter 10 and verse 1. It says, now it came to pass when Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, heard how Joshua had taken Ai and had utterly destroyed it, as he had done to Jericho and its king, so he had done to Ai and its king, and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and were among them. that they feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, like one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, and all its men were mighty. Therefore Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, sent to Hoam, king of Hebron, Piram, king of Jarmuth, Japhia, king of Lachish, and Debir, king of Eglon, saying, Come up to me and help me, that we may attack Gibeon, for it has made peace with Joshua and with the children of Israel. These 5 kings feel that they have been betrayed by the people of Gibeon, and now they're preparing to come together to declare war on them because of their treason. Like, the Gibeonites have joined forces with the Israelites, and now we need to punish the Gibeonites for what they're doing. Once all the planning is done here and everything's set in order, these 5 armies become one massive army, and they start moving towards Gibeon. Look at verse 5 with me. Therefore, the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon, gathered together and went up, they and all their armies, encamped before Gibeon and made war against it. These 5 armies are now camped right outside of the Gibeonite territory, and they are getting ready to move in and punish them for their broken allegiance. You were with us, you were in our land, you were on our side, and then you decided to make a treaty with Israel, and you are going to be punished for it. And 5 nations come together and make a huge army to take the Gibeonites down. The Gibeonite army is now outnumbered and overwhelmed. What these 5 kings didn't understand was that because the Gibeonites had made a peace treaty with Joshua and the Israelites, they weren't just picking a fight with the Gibeonites anymore. They missed a detail here. If we fight the Gibeonites who just made a treaty with the Israelites, don't forget that detail right there. They're picking a fight against Israel too, because there is an allegiance here. There's an alliance formed between these 2 nations. The Israelites are going to come to their aid. Those are the perks that come with the treaty. You've got backup. But they didn't think about that. Look at verse 6 with me. And the men of Gibeon sent to Joshua at the camp of Gilgal, saying, Do not forsake your servants. Come up to us quickly, save us and help us, for all the kings of the Amorites who dwell in the mountains have gathered together against us. The people of Gibeon realize that they're up against a power that they do not possess the strength to take down on their own. There's no way we're going to beat these 5 nations. They're coming up against us. We're toast. So we need help. They call Joshua and they say, we need your help. Please help us. Remember the covenant that you made with us. Remember the treaty that we just formed with you. Help. We need your help. So they quickly send a message crying out for help here. And I want to point out what Joshua does when he gets the news about Gibeon. Look at what he does here in verse 7. So Joshua ascended from Gilgal, he and all the people of war with him, and all the mighty men of valor. Sure, I turned on my microphone here, otherwise the people listening on the internet are not listening. But it's on and you're welcome, by the way. I did turn on my microphone. All right, right here in this verse, what's it say he does? It says he ascended from Gilgal, and all the people of war with him, and all the mighty men of valor. There's no hesitation here. They cry for help, and what does Joshua do? He doesn't complain. He doesn't ask God if he should go. He's about to risk his life in battle, and there's a huge chance of death in a situation like this. And he just gets up and he goes. We need your help. All right. He stands up and all these men with him, and they go. There's no hesitation. They just get up and they go. Joshua is bound by the covenant that he made. He begins to move even though he doesn't know all the details. He just gets up and he's going to keep his word. He made a covenant to them. He's going to keep his word even if it costs him everything. And God honored his heart and his dedication here. Look at verse 8 with me. And the Lord said to Joshua, Do not fear them, for I have delivered them into your hand. Not a man of them shall stand before you. The Amorites missed the little detail about the whole treaty thing. Let's take down the Gibeonites. But if they pick a fight with the Gibeonites, they also pick a fight with Israel. Slight oversight. Just missed that one thing. But to pick a fight with Israel, they also pick a fight with the God of all creation, because the people of Israel have a treaty also. and God's got their back. So the Amorites have now picked a fight with the Gibeonites, which means they have picked a fight with the Israelites, and in turn have picked a fight with the God of all creation. And I don't care how big a boy you think you are, that is not a good call. You don't take on God. But they have taken on God. Just like I did last week, I want to point out another characteristic of Joshua. And my prayer is that we all adopt this characteristic into our own life as well. Let's grab this. Verse 9. Joshua therefore came upon them suddenly, having marched all night from Gilgal. If I don't take a minute to dig into this verse a little bit, we miss a huge detail here in the passage. Joshua and his men wanted to secure the element of surprise. So it says that they marched through the night to get it. Gibeon cries for help. They get up and they start going. Immediately, they just get up and go. And it says that they marched throughout the night. But I don't want us to miss this detail here. That is a 25-mile hike. And if you look at the two locations in the Bible, you realize these guys would be totally worn out. They get up and they start running through the night 25 miles. I don't know how you're feeling, but that doesn't seem like something I would like to do tonight. You get up and run for 25 miles. And as soon as they get there, it's time to go to work. Look what happens in verse 10 here. So the Lord routed them before Israel, killed them with a great slaughter at Gibeon, chased them along the road that goes to Beth-horon, and struck them down as far as Azekah and Makkedah. Joshua and his army are exhausted from a 25-mile trip overnight, and when they get there, it says that God routes the Amorites right to them. We just ran all night long, 25 miles. When we get over this hill and, oh, look at that. It's time to fight. There's no take a breather. It's just time to go in. God routed the Amorites right to their front door. Here they are. There's your element of surprise. As soon as they get there, they're in full-on battle mode. Even though they're tired, they're doing well. They start fighting and they're doing well. But remember, the Amorites unknowingly had picked a fight with God also when they picked a fight with his people. And God's about to make them totally aware of the consequences of their decision. And I like it when God gets involved in these stories because they just become really entertaining to me. I like to see how God does what he does. God makes a move that no one could have predicted. A storm blows through during the battle. They're all fighting, and here comes a storm. Look at verse 11. And it happened, as they fled before Israel, and were on the descent of Beth-horon, that the Lord cast down large hailstones from heaven on them as far as Azekah, and they died. There were more who died from the hailstones than the children of Israel killed with the sword. Now, I want to point out that these are very particular hailstones. Catch that when we read it. They're picky. These hailstones have an agenda. They're kind of picky here. Can you imagine being in the middle of a battle and the majority of the people that you're fighting are being killed by large hailstones, but then you realize that your own army isn't being touched? That's a good day right there. That's a good day. This would give you an adrenaline rush like no other. Like, I was going to get him, but then that hailstone got him, and then I was going to get him, and then a hailstone got him. And then I'm looking around, and nothing's happening to our side. We're okay. We're doing fine. I'm telling you, I don't care how far you ran that night or the fact that you have been up all night long. When you see that start happening, you found your second win. Like, that's awesome. That's amazing to see. These guys have been up all night running 25-mile race against time. Now they've been in battle throughout the whole day, and the day is almost over. But then Joshua realizes that they have a new problem developing. There's where the plot thickens. A new problem showing up here. If the sun goes down, the Amorites will have home field advantage because this was their land and they're familiar with the terrain. Joshua and his army just showed up. They're not familiar with the landscape. They're not familiar with the terrain here. And if the sun goes down, these Amorites are going to have home field advantage. And if the battle goes into the night, Israel is going to suffer a loss. So Joshua does something that no military power would have ever expected. And this is what Joshua does here. Look at verse 12. Then Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Ajalon. So the sun stood still and the moon stopped, till the people had revenge upon their enemies. Is this not written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven and did not hasten to go down for about a whole day. Who would have thought Joshua had that move in his arsenal? You know, oh great, the sun's going down, we're going to win because the nightfall's coming and we'll have the advantage because they don't know what's going on. They don't know the land. We're going to win. And then Joshua says, you stay there. Not exactly the move you expect. Joshua commands that the sun stand still. Can you imagine the faith that this man had to have had to command the sun and expect it to follow his orders? And then it did. The sun stood still. Look at verse 14 with me. And there has been no day like that before it or after it, that the Lord heeded. Catch that. The Lord heeded the voice of man, for the Lord fought for Israel. Never before that has there been a day like that, and never after. Joshua commands the sun to stand still, and God basically says, yeah, what he said. That's an awesome story. Joshua realizes they're going to lose if it gets dark. He says, you stop. And God says, you heard him. You stop. God seconded the motion, or in this case, the lack of motion. No, he said to stop, and you stop. Wow. That's a good day. And it says the sun did not go down for about a whole day. So let's try to collect all the details here of what's going on since the beginning of the story. Joshua's army ran 25 miles throughout the night. They've been battling the Amorites all day. And now Joshua adds another whole day to what's already been an exhausting day. But these guys won't stop. They just continue to fight. For Israel's enemies, this must have been a huge wake-up call. All of the men of these 5 armies have realized that they are outnumbered by one really powerful God. We are outnumbered. It's 1 to millions. We're toast. We are outnumbered by an incredible God. While the Israelites are busy conquering the Amorite army, the 5 kings who picked the fight in the first place, they run off and they hide in a cave. So now you can see the bravery that it took to form this alliance with these other 5 nations here. It says that they run off and hide in a cave. Look at verse 17 here. And it was told to Joshua, saying, the 5 kings have been found hidden in the cave at Makkedah. So Joshua said, roll large stones against the mouth of the cave, and set men by it to guard them. And do not stay there yourselves, but pursue your enemies, and attack their rear guard. Do not allow them to enter their cities, for the Lord your God has delivered them into your hands. When Joshua gets word that these kings are hiding in this cave, he tells the men to trap them there and go finish the battle. Roll some stones in front of the door of that cave so they're stuck in there. Put some guards in front of that cave and go finish the battle. And they obey Joshua. Once the battle is complete, they all return to the cave and they bring those kings out to face Joshua. And I'm telling you, if you don't feel like you've had a bad day yet, yeah, we got hit by hailstones, the sun stuck, we hid in a cave, they found us, and then they trapped us in here. Now it's time to face the music. Now the stones are moved, and they bring these 5 kings out to come face to face with Joshua. Look at verse 24. So it was, when they brought out those kings to Joshua, that Joshua called for all the men of Israel and said to the captains of the men of war who went with him, "Come near, put your feet on the necks of these kings." And they drew near and put their feet on their necks. To stand on the neck or on the head of a king was symbolic of complete triumph. Is symbolic, and Joshua wants them to know what's happening here. Put your feet on their neck. Complete triumph. These kings have been humbled by thorough defeat. 5 armies against one big God. Put your feet on their necks and let them know they are totally conquered. This entire Israelite army was less than 20 years old when they were in the wilderness. And they've never seen anything like this. Remember, Egyptian captivity and wilderness wandering is all they know. That's all they know. We were in Egyptian bondage and then we wandered in a wilderness. That's our whole life. They don't know any. This is to place their foot on the kings of the necks of kings was to them something that only happened. It only existed in legend. Who are we to have the power to put our foot on the necks of kings? Joshua wanted them to know what they had in Christ, what they had in God. This victory was brought to them by none other than God himself. Look at the advice that Joshua gives them in verse 25. Then Joshua said to them, "Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed. Be strong and of good courage, for thus the Lord will do to all your enemies against whom you fight." You still got God on your side. I want you to know the power you have in your corner. Don't be afraid. Don't be dismayed. Be strong and of good courage, because God will do this to every one of your enemies. As these men have their feet on the necks of these kings, Joshua tells them not to be afraid. Don't be dismayed. Keep the courage. God's got your back, and he is going to bless your faithfulness. And this is the exact same thing that God taught Joshua as he stepped into his leadership position years earlier. Look at Joshua chapter 1 and verse 9. This is what God told Joshua. "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." So what's Joshua telling these guys? It's something I heard. A wise man once said to me, "Don't be afraid. Don't be dismayed. Be of good courage. Remain strong, because the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." And he reiterates that to these men as they have their feet on the necks of these kings. By the way, I want to point out, Satan one day went ahead and bruised the heel. The picture in the Old Testament, remember, he's going to bruise the heel of the Messiah. And what does it say about the Messiah that he's going to do to the serpent? "I'm going to put my foot on your head. I'm going to crush your head." The power is gone. The victory has been won. Joshua is saying, put your feet on their necks, because there is a picture here I don't want you to miss. Put your feet on the necks of these kings. Total victory. And God will do this to all of your enemies. Remember the power you have in your corner. God has got this under control. Don't be afraid. Don't be dismayed. Be of good courage. Be strong. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Joshua had to learn this lesson when he was younger, and now he wants this current generation to learn it as well. Sometimes you're going to be afraid. Sometimes you're going to feel weak. Sometimes you're going to feel like giving in. But there's something you need to do when your fear arises. You need to introduce your fear to your God. Guys, introduce your fear to your God. Don't be afraid. Be of good courage. Be strong. Don't be dismayed. Introduce your fear to your God. And he will do this to every one of your enemies. During this 2-day event, these guys have been through Joshua was teaching them a lesson that was invaluable for their life in the promised land. They had run all night through 25 miles with him. They've all fought by his side throughout the next day, and then another day was added on top of that day, which makes a really long day. And Joshua delivered to them an irreplaceable message. If it's worth having, earn it. Don't stop fighting for what's right. If it's worth it, fight. And it doesn't matter how long it gets and how hard the battle gets. If it's worth having, earn it. Look at Galatians chapter 6 and verse 7 with me. Do not be deceived, God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that will he also reap. For he who sows to the flesh will of the flesh reap corruption, but he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life. And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. Sometimes it gets difficult. Doing what is right can sometimes be tiring, but there is a due season. Catch that. In due season. It's coming. There is a due season. God has a plan far beyond anything that you can think up. There is a due season. Who would have thought the sun would stand still when Joshua commanded the sun to stand still? Somebody had the inside story. Somebody knew it would stand still. Because when Joshua said stop, God said do it. God's got your back. He's got your back. He says don't give up. Don't grow weary in doing well. Because there is a due season coming. And God's plan goes way beyond anything you can come up with on your own. In the promised land, this generation was going to have many battles. This is just the beginning for them. Their enemies were going to try to influence them to back down over and over and over again. But if the favor of God is worth having, then earn it. Don't back down. Don't stop. Joshua taught perseverance. He reminded them if the enemy picks a fight against the people of God, then they also pick a fight with God. Understand that. You've got to grab this. If Satan wants to discourage you, if he wants to pick a fight with you, he also has to pick a fight with God. Do we understand the power we have in our corner? If he is going to come after you, God says, oh, no temptation is going to come to you that I don't provide a way of escape from. There's a way out. I will provide the way out. Whatever you're struggling with, when Satan picks a fight with you, he picks a fight with God too. Joshua encouraged them to remember their position as children of God. I want you to remember this. If anybody picks a fight with the people of God, then they have also picked a fight with God. Because there's a treaty, there's a covenant here. And God will not back down on his word. He's got your back. He's with you wherever you go. The promised land is a picture of the Christian life. I've heard a lot of people say the promised land is a picture of heaven. I hope not, because they fought a lot in the promised land. The promised land is a picture of the Christian walk. It is the picture of the Christian life. It is not the picture, even though heaven is promised, that doesn't mean that's what the Bible is trying to show us here. The promised land is a picture of the Christian walk. There will be a lot of battles. There will be a lot of discouragements that happen. And Satan's going to fight to get you to back down. And there are people all around us who need to see us remain faithful through it all. Show the example. Rahab the harlot that was in Jericho, she saw them remain faithful and she joined. Ruth joined. People saw the people of God doing what they were supposed to do, and it attracted them to God. Remember, it's going to be a fight, though. Satan is going to fight. And I want to show you the final result of a life of a faithful Christian. Look at Matthew 25 and verse 21. It says, his Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things, I will make you ruler over many things. Enter the joy of your Lord. I can't imagine ever hearing anything greater than those words right there. For a sinner like me to hear such a loving God say, I'm proud of you, would be an overwhelming honor. The person that's sitting right where you're sitting right now, hopefully that narrowed it down enough for you. You. What would it feel like if the God of all the universe, the God who sent his Son and loved beyond the capacity that any one of us have to love, walks up to you and says, I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you. What would that do to you? Do we understand what's sitting in front of us? Do we understand what we have the ability to hear one day? When God says, I'm so proud of you. Me? Why in the world would you be proud of me? Why would you be proud of me? You are good and you are faithful. And I'm proud of you. What I'm trying to say is if it's worth having, then earn it. That's worth having. When God says, I'm proud of you, that is worth having. Earn it. You're not going to hear these words simply because you got saved. Jesus gets the well done because you got saved. Understand that. We don't get a well done because we got saved. Jesus gets that well done. Well done. They didn't stand a chance. Good job. They're saved because of everything you did. Well done. My well done doesn't come just because I got saved. That's not how I'm going to hear that. That's what Jesus will hear when I show up in heaven. Well done, Jesus. Well done, because he didn't stand a chance. There was no way he was ever going to get here. Good job, son. Good job. You and I didn't do anything to earn salvation. That's a gift. It was a free gift offered to us through everything that Jesus did well, not what we did well. The words well done will be followed by the words good and faithful servant. And if you want it, earn it. Earn it. It's not just going to be handed to you. We live in a culture that feels entitled. Many people don't understand why good things in life are not just handed to them. I don't understand. Did you earn it? No, it just should be given to me. I'm entitled. I have my rights. No, we're not entitled to anything. My fear is that this mentality can also creep into our churches. Many Christians have even gotten to the point where they get angry with God because Satan is fighting so hard to keep them down and discouraged. I want to close out this sermon by encouraging you in the same fashion that Joshua encouraged the people of God that day. You have an enemy named Satan, and he's going to try to intimidate you with circumstances. He's going to try to get you to the point where you feel so spiritually weak. He's going to try to get you to feel like throwing in the towel and just giving up. I'm growing weary in well-doing. I'm tired. And he's going to try to discourage you and to bring you down and to bring fear into your life and to cause you to back away. And sometimes you're going to be afraid. And sometimes you're going to be weak. And sometimes you're going to feel like giving in. But there's something you need to do when that fear rises. You need to introduce your fear to your God. Understand that there's so much power in your corner. Even through a long night, you keep running. When the battle is long, you keep fighting. Because when Satan picks a fight with the child of God, God will show up to finish it. Believe me, God will show up to finish it. Due season is coming. The night may seem long and the battle may be exhausting, but I promise you it is worth it. Try to just take a second here And imagine standing before God, knowing that you are unworthy to be in front of God because of the sins that you committed in your life. Understanding that you are only there because of His grace and the sacrifice of His Son. And as you can't even look up at Him because you know you are not worthy to stand before Him, He looks down at you and says, I am so proud of you. If it's worth having, earn it. Earn it. And it is so worth having. I want that relationship with God. And it is worth having. King David saw many battles in his time. He was faced with discouragements and shortcomings throughout his whole life. But look at how he summarizes everything at the end. In Psalms 37 and verse 25, I have been young and now am old, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken. God's got your back. It's worth it. You fight even when it's hard. You fight. You run even though the race is long. You run. God is going to show up and He's going to finish it for you. It's worth it. When God sees the faithfulness of His people, He has open access to bless them with more light. And then also He can bless their enemies with hailstones. But God's all over this. But we need to remain faithful. As children of God, we run together. We hold each other up. Joshua encouraged his fellow soldiers. Keep running. Keep running. Keep fighting. Be strong and of good courage. Don't be afraid. Don't be dismayed. Why? Because as your feet are on the necks of those kings, so will God do to all of your enemies. Remember, when they pick a fight with the children of God, they pick a fight with God. Don't forget it. Keep going. Keep fighting. It's worth the fight. We help each other grow in the same way. When we see each other slipping back, we encourage each other. Keep fighting. Keep going. Don't let that bother you. Don't let focus. Focus on Him. Focus on Him. Don't let that get to you. Focus on Him. Keep fighting. Don't let the enemy get in and discourage you in any way. Focus on Him. Focus on the one that can make the sun stand still and can take care of them with the hailstones. Focus on Him. Remember, they picked a fight with Him, not you. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and rulers of darkness. This is a spiritual warfare. Let them fight. You stay faithful. You run. You keep running. Keep running. Keep fighting. God's got this. Salvation is free, but spiritual growth takes work. It's going to take work. Spiritual growth is an intentional thing. It doesn't just happen. You work. You work. You strive. You stay faithful. And to hear God say, I'm proud of you, would be such an overwhelming honor. Such an overwhelming honor. And I hope you crave that like I crave that. And my prayer is that I learn to crave that more. To hear the God of all the universe, who is so holy and so worthy, look at somebody that is so sinful, saved by the blood of His Son, and look at me and say, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. Well done, good and faithful servant. If you want it, earn it. Earn it. We are not entitled. Salvation was free. Spiritual growth is intentional. If you want it, earn it. Stand with me this morning. Dear Heavenly Father, we do thank you so much.